Hi, my name is Simon Harvey and I'm here with Professor Danielle George. Hello.
Hello.
Danielle, can I take you back to your childhood in the Northeast and discuss your early inspirations? How did you come to science and engineering?
So I think I was always into science and engineering in the way that pretty much every child is actually, because I asked why all the time. So why is sky blue? Why is the grass green? Why? Drove my parents mad and my teachers mad. And then I sort of followed it up with how, so how things work as well. And very much later on realised that that was the scientist and the engineer in me. But thankfully, both of my parents, sort of every time I was asking why, they were like, probably inside they were like, oh my goodness, I don't know. But on the outside, they were like, well, let's find out, because I don't know either. So let's find out together. And so they always encouraged me that way. And so I went through what my mum calls science phases. So I really liked chemistry.
Right.
So my parents bought me just a very small chemistry set and I played with that, really enjoyed it. But then I sort of grew out of that phase. And then the next one was a microscope. I really enjoyed that. But again, it sort of fizzled out after a while. And then my parents bought me a telescope, so I was really interested in astronomy. And that just really stuck with me. That was the thing that was like, wow, this is really inspiring me now. So thankfully, again, my parents sort of said, okay, well, she obviously really likes this. Let's buy some more books and let's encourage her to do this. And yeah, that's just stuck with me ever since, was the astronomy side. And so I went into astrophysics at university.
Just going back, are there stories about you looking out at night at
there
lunar
are,
eclipses?
yes.
Is that right?
Yeah. I used to get, so I have two sisters, and I used to get all of us up, all five of us up for the lunar eclipses, and this was like amazing for me. And you know, my sisters would be like, oh, come on, you know, but they did it every time. They were so good, and sort of feigning their amazement when I was like, wow, look at the moon, isn't it amazing? They were like, yeah, it's great. I want to go back to bed.
So some early lecturing, really.
Yeah, I think so, yeah. So neither my parents were scientists or engineers. They're both retired now. My mum was a teacher of special needs children. My dad was more on the mechanical side, so he had a garage, he was a mechanical engineer. But so I guess I sort of tinkered around with him at the garage. I used to think I was sort of helping on a Saturday morning when I'd go to the garage with him and you know, press the foot pedals for him and sort of very much helping him, I'm sure. But yeah, they both just encouraged me, and my sisters did too.
So you were aware of machinery and how things worked from a very early age?
Yeah, and I liked sort of tinkering with it, taking apart, seeing how things actually worked and seeing if they still actually worked when I put them back together as well, which most of the time they did, but not every time.
And did you follow that through with school? Did you do the traditional sort of STEM subjects at school?
I did, yeah. So at GCSE I did all of the sciences, but I really enjoyed music as well, so I wanted to keep the music going. And so I did an extra GCSE, but then at A-level I did maths, physics and chemistry. Your sort of very traditional STEM subjects.
And did you know at that point what you were kind of headed to?
No, not at all, actually. I mean, I never even thought about academia ever. I just knew that I really liked astronomy, and thankfully I got very good careers advice at school, where the careers advisor said, well, I know you really like astronomy, but that's quite narrow when you go to university, so try and keep your options a bit more open and do astrophysics instead, because you do like the practical work and you do like your maths and things, so keep it a bit more broad, which thankfully I did.
And had others in your family been to university?
And my older sister had, but she stayed at home. She's very much sort of a home bird. But other than that, no, my parents hadn't been to university or anything. So yeah, I was the first one who went away to university. I went to Liverpool. Yeah, that was the first time anyone had been away from home. So there were lots of tears when they dropped me off and had to drive away.
So how did you end up at Manchester? How did that come about?
So I finished my undergraduate and still just wanted to carry on with the research side of it. the engineering still hadn't dawned on me by this point, because actually what I should have done at university was electronic engineering, because it was very, very practical. Everything I did, all of the projects that I wanted to do at university were very, very practical. And I know now that that was putting my maths and physics to work in a different way in electrical engineering. But I still really enjoyed the astronomy, and so I wanted to carry on my study. So I went to actually study out at Jodrell Bank Observatory. When I was there, again, I wanted to do, for my big dissertation, for my master's, I wanted to do a practical project. And of course, none of the astronomers could do a practical project. They were all into their sort of data reduction, sort of more theoretical side of it. Thankfully, I got an in with the engineers already. And so we managed to get one of the engineers to sort of supervise me. And so they did. I worked on an amazing project. And it just so happened that a job came up for a junior engineer just as I was finishing. So I applied for that and got that job, and then just stayed at Jodrell working for 7 years at Jodrell Bank as an engineer before I sort of went into the academic side.
So was it quite accidental that you ended up in Manchester in a way? But because with Jodrell being there was, for you personally, there was no better place to be, was there?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it was such a great place to go out, and it's a very unique place, Jodrell Bank, very unique. Great place to study, and certainly to start your research career was an amazing place. So yeah, I wouldn't have wanted to have been anywhere else.
And then, obviously, you left Jodrell and were offered a lectureship at the university. Yeah,
so I had this sort of curious route, a sort of career route where I was studying, and at the time the two universities, UMIST and Victoria University of Manchester, were separate, and so Jodrell Bank was part of the Victoria University of Manchester, and some people who I was working with at UMIST said, why don't you write up your work that you're doing, your research work, as a PhD? And I was extremely lucky in that I did a full-time PhD whilst doing my full-time job, because they overlapped so much. Not quite 100%, but there was an awful lot of overlap between them. So I managed to do my PhD in just over 3 years, whilst still working. And because the two universities were separate, we could sort of do that. Then literally the day I had my Viva, my PhD Viva, and found out that I'd passed my PhD, I found out that I was going to have an interview for a lectureship post in, well, the two universities had combined then, but in the School of Electrical and Electronic Engineering. So yeah, just not very, like a few days sort of thing after I'd officially got my PhD, then I went for the lectureship post and got the lectureship, and so stayed in the School of Electrical and Electronic Engineering, EEE, ever since.
And how did that feel, joining the staff?
It was weird, yeah.
So quickly after
yeah, I
finishing
think
your PhD.
That's the thing. It was so quick. And it was quite a move from me. You know, I'd been at Jodrell Bank for several years, and while some of the academics from Jodrell had moved into Manchester, into the new building, into the Turing building at the time, I hadn't, so I was still out at Jodrell Bank and still working there in a very different environment to being in the centre of Manchester. But it was fabulous. I mean, all of the challenges that a lectureship post brought to me, rather than just doing research, were amazing. And I still have all of those different challenges now, which is great.
Those very fast movements of things happening to you has been really part of your career, hasn't it? Because you were a chair at a very young age, or relatively young age for an academic.
Yeah, 38.
Yeah.
My husband calls it the year of the 3 Ps. It's quite a sort of monumental year in our family, because in the same year I became professor. I presented the Christmas lectures, and I got pregnant all in the same year. So my husband is like, that was quite a big year for you. You don't have to have every year like the 3 Ps.
Well, that's the Christmas lectures is a prestigious thing to present, isn't it? How did you feel about being invited to do that?
It was amazing, absolutely amazing. I mean, I thought it was a joke at first. You know, the type that you get sort of an email, you know, would you like £1 million from a Nigerian bank, sort of thing. It's like, yeah, sure, I'd love that. So it was you know, we'd like you to look at presenting the Christmas lectures. And he said, yeah, sure, I'd love to do that. Delete. Thankfully, they got back in touch about 2 weeks later and were saying, I'm just wondering if you got that email that we sent. And I was like, oh, blimey, yeah, I did. I just thought it was a bit of a joke. Because they're quintessentially Christmas, aren't they? And they've been very much a part of my upbringing. And so to actually do one, you think, you know, wow, you know, who would ask me to do that? So, but then it was a funny feeling because once they'd asked me, I was like, right, I really want to do this now. Now I've been asked, I really, really. And so I had no idea who else they'd asked, how many people they'd asked or anything. I knew for sure that they would have asked more people. And so you had to sort of pitch your ideas. If you were going to give the Christmas lectures, what would you do? You know, what are the challenges that you do? And thankfully they must have liked my ideas, and so yeah, I got to present them, and it was just amazing.
Yeah, well, I've seen them, and obviously you were quite heavily pregnant at the time, and it's hard to avoid. Did you know that when you accepted, or
no? I didn't know that. I didn't know that until we'd done all the press release for it, and so literally we'd done sort of this big photo shoot and the newspapers, and we'd done like interviews and things, and then that came out, and I found out I was pregnant. And I was like, oh man, you know, that's such bad timing, you know, because now I'm not going to be able to do the Christmas lectures. And thankfully, my husband was like, why not? Why can't you? I was like, well, actually, why can't I? You know, as long as I'm not giving birth and it turns into biology instead of engineering, then it's probably okay. And yeah, so I was 8.5 months pregnant when we filmed, yeah. So when they were aired on TV, I was in hospital giving birth. When the second lecture was on TV, I was giving birth, yeah.
Did you see them later?
Yes. Yeah, we recorded them, yeah.
And do I understand that they had somebody on standby just in case anything did happen?
They did, yeah. Well. Dallas Campbell, who I'm sure many people know, he's done an awful lot of TV, with a great science communicator. And he was just amazing. He came to a lot of the rehearsals and just made it really fun as well. And he was involved in the second lecture as well. He was the hologram image that we brought into the lecture. So he was very much part of them already. And I've done some work with him after the lectures as well, which has been really interesting.
Were you nervous doing them, or had you done that kind of thing before? No,
never. I'd never been in front of a camera or anything before. So yeah, it was a strange feeling. I was very nervous, but I think in many ways, because I was pregnant, I was sort of thinking this is much more important than if I fluff a line or, you know, forget what I'm doing or whatever. So in a strange way, it sort of calmed my nerves, because I thought that this is the thing that if anything goes wrong, I'm nervous about this. So actually, like the cameras, and if an experiment goes wrong, then, you know, that's television, I guess. And lots of experiments did go wrong when we first did them as well. So, but it was just great fun and an amazing experience, a truly life-changing experience for me.
Oh, that's interesting. Did you get much feedback after it? Loads
of feedback, yeah. It was really nice, because I obviously was straight on maternity leave. I got letters, like proper written letters. I got millions of emails and things as well, but I actually had proper handwritten letters from people, from children to, I think the oldest was 93, who'd watched them with their grandparents and their grandchildren, and they'd loved them, and just such wonderful feedback from people.
Which, as an academic, as a scientist, there can be no better feeling, really.
Exactly, yeah, because it's a very different feeling. I mean, normally when you've done something in your research, your peers can be very supportive, but some can be extremely critical as well. And I didn't find any of that for the Christmas lectures. I mean, if there was, somebody shielded it from me, but yeah, largely they were extremely supportive. And it was an amazing experience. I think there are very, very few things in life that have such an effect on your career and your personal life. And the Christmas lectures for me is that. It had a profound effect on both.
In what way? How have you taken that forward? How has that affected life since?
It's changed my direction currently in my career. There have been some amazing opportunities that have arisen as a consequence of doing the Christmas lectures. And I've tried to do as many as I possibly could with them. So there's a lot more public engagement activities, and that's given me completely different challenges to the type that teaching gives me or my research gives me. And so it's been really interesting to explore those in the past year. And so that on our personal life as well, we've travelled more. I did the Christmas lectures out in Singapore and in Japan, and because it's such a different career in terms of sort of the public engagement side, we've tried to take Elizabeth, our daughter. I've tried to take her with us if we've gone anywhere and things like that. So yeah, it's been amazing. Just a completely different new challenge, which I've loved.
Taking that a stage further, you mentioned your teaching, your research. You're involved in some major projects, not the least of which is trying to solve one of the 14 global engineering challenges.
Yes.
It sounds like quite a big project. But you've taken it upon yourself to inspire engineers or young people to become scientists and engineers.
Yeah.
And we know there's a national and international shortage of engineers. There's a traditional gender disparity as well. Do you feel that quite strongly and quite passionately, don't you?
I do, yeah. I mean, I think it's the job of all of us to inspire that next generation. And I think I've been given a very wonderful opportunity to be more into the sort of public engagement side of it, and I want to use that to help inspire the next generation. There are many academics that do amazing work, and it's not out there and it's not helping to inspire because there are lots of people who feel very uncomfortable giving that sort of public lecture or in the public domain. So I want to try and help more academics into the public domain and to make them feel comfortable, to inspire the next generation as well, because we all need to do it. Like you say, there's a shortage of engineers. I mean, we'll be short of just under 2 million by 2020, and that's in this country alone. And like you say, the gender balance is very very skewed, and there's not many females. So if I can hopefully help get more engineers, full stop, but if I can get more female engineers as well, then I'd like to try and do that. So that's my new challenge.
There are lots of initiatives, aren't there? Sort of, national days, organisations celebrating women in engineering and engineering per se. Do you think we're doing enough, or do we need to look more creatively at what we can do? I mean, you're looking to try and persuade academics, which is interesting. So you're turning the spotlight the other way.
Yes, I think there's loads we can do from every angle. I think there's an awful lot we can do with primary school in the teachers as well as the children, and to make sure that we have a curriculum that allows children to tinker, to play, and to fail as well, and to know that failing is good, and we should celebrate the fantastic failures. They are very much a normal part of life. They certainly are in my research. We fail all the time, and if we're not innovating. So, and we need to make sure that children are okay failing, and I currently don't think we have a curriculum that allows teachers to innovate with their children and to allow time to play and to tinker. So I think there's an awful lot of work to do with primary school children and teachers, but then government and the professional bodies have a major role to play in order to allow them to do that from the sort of grassroots up.
And inevitably, people like you will be seen as role models. Does that sit comfortably?
Yeah, it's a funny thing. I mean, yeah. So my husband has this alert on Google. So if anything comes up about Professor Danielle George, then Google alerts him that things. And it's a really strange feeling. Keen. Yeah, he's very keen. Yes. And yeah, it's a strange feeling that things will come up and say, I have one of these emojis now as one of the science heroes of the UK now, and there's an emoji of me, and you're sort of like, oh, that's a bit. I feel a bit funny about that, but I think yes, that takes me out of my comfort zone. But hopefully, if that can help in the future, and I can be one of many other people who are role models for the future STEM, then that's got to be a good thing.
It comes with responsibilities, though, doesn't it, as well?
It does, yes, yeah. There are, I've been exceptionally fortunate that in my role at the university, I've been allowed to explore the public engagement side, but there have been an awful lot. I returned from maternity leave in September, and as well as doing all of the other things that I do as an academic, and I'm the Vice Dean for the Faculty of Engineering and Physical Sciences as well, I've done over, I think there are about 58 public engagement activities since September, so it's quite a lot. And they're all very different, which is great. And the bit that I really love about them actually is the questions afterwards, and especially when you're talking to children, because they ask the most amazing questions. You're like, how did you get that from what I've just been talking about? They're amazing questions. And yeah, so I've really been very fortunate to be able to explore the public engagement side as part of my work as well.
I read somewhere as well that you said that we're all born scientists.
Yeah, we are.
So what have I lost then?
Yeah, well, if you're not asking why anymore, that's the thing, because children ask why all of the time. And I don't know a child who hasn't asked why. So we all do it when we're children, and we all build building blocks, and we all knock them down, and we're all in our child's mind saying, why does that go on top of that, and why does it stay up, and how does it stay up, and how can I knock it down? And so children in their own minds are always asking why and how. And why is a fundamental question to any scientist. It doesn't matter what you're doing in your research, that question is fundamental to you. To me, the how question is fundamental to an engineer as well as the why. So yeah, we all ask why as a child. Most of us ask how. So we're definitely all born scientists, and many of us born engineers.
I remember tinkering in the garage and taking an alarm clock apart, and
exactly.
Yeah, it is a perfectly natural, inquisitive thing to do, isn't it? But
we are naturally very curious. Yeah, but we do lose it, and I think there's been a generation where we've lost it because we haven't had the technology around us. The technology has advanced so much that it hasn't allowed us to tinker, to open up the alarm clocks, to make transistor radios and things like that, because we've gone so digital and so black box. It's very difficult to take apart your phone and get it to still work when you try and put it back together again, if indeed you can physically take it apart. So I think we've gone through this era, and that's perhaps where we've lost some of the innovators, the technical people, the engineers of the world, and we've lost this curiosity from people. I think we're coming out of that era now, and I think the accessible electronics, the Raspberry Pis, the Arduinos and things like that are really helping us to start tinkering again and to start making things. And I think it's great that primary school children are coding. That's in the curriculum now. I mean, that's one very, very good initiative, is that children are starting to code, because, I mean, who knows what they're going to do. The challenge for me as an academic, when they come to university, the likes of Elizabeth, my daughter, in 18 years' time, 17 years' time, when she goes to university, what is she going to be comfortable with this technology? Because she's already comfortable with my mobile phone and swiping. She already knows how to do that, and she's 16 months. What is she going to be doing when she's 18? So I think there's a great challenge for academics to make sure we are changing with the technology tide as well, and we can keep up with these new age of tinkerers.
The rate and pace of change in technology is such that we almost don't know what your daughter's going to be doing aged 18.
Absolutely.
In terms of technology, do we?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. We know that there are these 14 World Engineering Grand Challenges. Hopefully by the time my daughter goes to university, some of those will be solved, but there for sure will be new challenges. But in terms of the technology, it will be moving so quick. And we need people to make sure they embrace that technology. And the way most of us embrace things is we are curious about it, we enjoy it, so we're having fun whilst we're doing something. And if we can make sure that we all inspire the next generation so that they are having fun, they are still curious with it, then I think that's a really important thing for the world actually going forward, but certainly for the UK economy as well.
In terms of exactly what you do, you're Professor of Radio Frequency Engineering.
Yes.
Can you explain to me, the layman, what that means?
Yes. So so the sort of official term, like you said, is I engineer the tool for scientific discovery, and I use radio waves to do that. So instead of using visible light, I would use radio waves. It's the same sort of technology that we all have in our mobile phones and the way those work. So I will use that to try and design instrumentation that will help with the way we farm, the way we fly, the way we design cities, and of course the big space projects that I'm working on as well. So using that radio frequency part of the spectrum, instead of using visible light, which we use with our eyes, use radio waves that we use with mobile phones to try and solve these big grand challenges we have.
So the applications are many and varied.
They are, yes, they're really varied actually. I mean, I started my my research in space applications, which of course has to be wireless technology. But I wanted to see what sort of applications there were that you could transfer that to, if indeed there were any. The challenges that you have with space projects are many and great. Could you transfer that to an application that is much more on the ground and is much more applicable with the people around the world? And we found that we can. We've taken very similar technology and we're using it in farming. We're working with farmers. And so whilst we're trying to sort of bury nodes in the soil and read what's happening wirelessly, maybe just a couple of meters away, whilst it's only a couple of meters and I'm used to millions of light years with the space projects, actually the technology and the challenges you have with trying to move from here a couple of meters through soil in order to read the information, they're very, very similar. And so it's really nice for me to be able to try and take the technology that I worked on and the fundamental ways into very many different applications. I mean, that's what I love about my research.
In terms of the farming, that's to detect moisture, is that right?
Yeah, moisture, the temperature, nutritional ingredients that are needed for the crop growth. So trying to, instead of a farmer irrigating the whole of the field because he or she doesn't know which part needs irrigating or not, trying to preserve a precious resource in water by being able to look in real time on a tractor and saying this part needs irrigating, this part doesn't, this part does, this part doesn't. And so if you do that in real time, you're just using the water where it's needed in the field. And so trying to sort of tackle the challenge of water shortages around the world by moving towards this sort of precision agriculture.
And I read about robotics being used in herding cattle in Australia, monitoring apple yields in orchards.
Yeah.
It's quite phenomenal, isn't it? We need to use our imagination here as to what possibly the applications could be.
We really do, yeah. I mean, and that's why I think it's always great to get children more involved because their imagination is boundless. And some of the things you sort of go, actually, yeah. I mean, I know it sounds crazy and everything, but yeah, why not? And they just have, the naivety is such a great thing, and you know, they just go, why can't we have robots to pick apples or herd cows? Or actually, yeah, why can't we? You know, that's good. So yeah, I think their imagination of children and getting children involved in it is very important for the future.
Yeah. Let's talk about the Cockcroft-Rutherford lecture. Now, you talk in that about crowdfunding engineering. You talk about, is it science data engineers?
Yeah, citizen
data engineers.
Yeah.
Is that another way of putting engineering back into people's ordinary lives in a way?
Yes, yeah, very much so. So we've had citizen science projects, and that's a great way to get the public, to get citizens involved in real research. And there are many great examples of how that has actually helped real research projects. But they've never done it with citizen engineering. And there might be a reason for that, and I might find out what that reason is quite soon. But yeah, I wanted to try this challenge of having a citizen engineering project. So crowdsource the people, so get literally the people of Manchester to help design, not only to produce instruments for the robot orchestra, but to design it. And so basically approach an engineering project in the way that you'd never normally approach one. So you don't have a design spec, you don't have a systems engineer, you don't have system integrators, you don't have subsystems where every engineer is responsible for a different part and then it's all brought together. You literally go, this is what we want to do, everyone. How can we all do this? And then everyone brings with their own ideas, and it's very much organic rather than you know exactly what you want to do from the beginning and then you stick to that. This is a much more organic approach. So yeah, definitely taking me out of my comfort zone as an engineer.
In a way, a more multidisciplinary approach is still relatively new in science, but it's absolutely the way forward, isn't it?
It's absolutely the way forward, yeah. I mean, there is no reason fundamentally why scientists, engineers, musicians, artists, social scientists can't work together. Historically, many people have not, including myself. I've worked much more with engineers and scientists than I have with anyone else. But yeah, to get musicians in on this, so people, it's a really interesting mix. So we have primary school children who come with their amazing ideas, and then we've got people from the Halle Orchestra and amazing musicians, and then we've got people in academia, from music and from science and engineering, and then we've got industry in Siemens, and they're qualified engineers, and we're all working together. And the meetings that we have are by far the most interesting meetings I've ever been to, because we actually do speak the same language eventually. We've got different terms to begin with, but we're all starting to understand each other's terms, and it's just seeing musicians and engineers talking to each other and getting what each other's saying as well is amazing. It's such a wonderful project for that.
So we're going to be hearing more from the orchestra later in the year
as
part of the City of Science, aren't we?
Yes, in July. The music that we heard as part of the lecture will be played at the Euroscience Open Forum conference, the launch of that in July, and then a much bigger performance in October. So whilst we have one composer for the July performance, there are many composers for the October performance, and many more robots will be part of the October performance. So the alumni robot will be part of the October performance as well.
Can we talk a little bit about the McDee Project at the university? It's very exciting. It's going to be about embedding engineering in the heart of our campus. Presumably, as an engineer, that really is quite thrilling for you too.
It is, yeah. I mean, I think we have an amazing opportunity. I can't imagine another opportunity like this in my career where we have, a £360 million building for engineers and for students, for the engineers to be able to do our research in there and to be able to teach as well in there. And like you say, right in the heart of the campus of Manchester. And that heart of the campus is so vibrant. It's so alive when all of the students and the academics are around as well. So it's an amazing opportunity. And we want to be able to showcase not only what students do for the benefit of students and for academics, but to be able to make sure that the public who are walking past know what's going on in this building, and it's not just shut out and people are sort of like, oh yeah, that's just a university building. We want to have the most amazing pieces of research behind big pieces of glass where people walk past and go, wow, I didn't know engineers did that. And hopefully just as they're walking along the street to be inspired what's happening at the university in terms of engineering.
So you're taking that opportunity, this new building, to take science again into the public arena?
Absolutely, yeah. I think we need to take every opportunity we can, and I think it's an amazing opportunity to showcase what students do as well as what the researchers and the academics do as well, and to get the public into that building as well, and to make it an after-hours building so we can do public lectures in there, and it can be an inspiring place for anyone who comes to talk there, and we can have the public coming in, the citizen engineers of the future coming in and talking about the work they're doing as well.
And from an academic point of view, bringing all the disciplines together.
Yeah. I mean, it's a fantastic opportunity. I mean, clearly there are lots of challenges with it, but to have, I don't know of any other university actually, certainly in this country, that can combine with the scale that we can, electrical, electronic, mechanical, aerospace, civil, chemical, materials, all in not only on one campus now, but in one university. There is so much scope for collaboration, and I think there will be a lot more collaboration once we're all in one big campus as well.
So are there some future projects that we should be looking forward to as a result?
Yeah, but they're very embryonic at the moment. We want to try and do a lot more with the material engineering and electronics. We think there's a lot more there, the sort of whole wearable tech. There's a lot more wearable tech work. And also bringing in the medics and seeing if we can get wearable tech that could maybe help in with early signs of breast cancer, for example. So getting that sort of interdisciplinary work going a bit more. But I, for sure, after the Robot Orchestra project, want to get involved more with the social scientists as well, and the musicians and the artists and people in our faculty of humanities as well. I think we've got great ability in the university, and I think we need to take advantage of it more. I need to take advantage of it more than I do now.
Because we have the history and heritage, don't we, in engineering and in science?
Huge history, yeah. To go from the Industrial Revolution to graphene all in one city is amazing, and everything in between. And I think there is so much work that we can do to bring the past and the future together. And we're doing that with National Graphing Institute and things like that. And then on a much lower scale, this robot orchestra idea, having robots that are from Industrial Revolution to graphene and everything in between, I think really just showcase what we're capable of in Manchester as well.
It's very much a case of your career has been about being in the right place at the right time.
Yes, very much so.
So it must be thrilling for you to be doing that with what you're doing here.
Yes, absolutely.
In this city.
Yeah, and I think clearly I'm biased because I've been here quite a lot, and I'm biased for Newcastle. But I think outside of Newcastle, where I'm from, and Manchester, I can't imagine there are many other cities that you'd be able to do what we can all do. I mean, certainly as the University of Manchester, we are the largest university outside of the Open University in the UK. And whilst that might bring some challenges because of the size of us, we have so many opportunities to do this collaborative work that other universities might not be able to do on their own, and to be able to show the impact of the city and of our university and of the other universities within Manchester as well. So yeah, I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. And
you mentioned that you went back to Jodrell earlier on, and of course the Square Kilometre Array. You've been involved in that project. So what's happening? What will you be doing with that in the future?
So the Square Kilometre Array is a very, very big project, international project, and there are pretty much every continent in the world is working on it. It is going to be in Western Australia and in South Africa, but all of these dishes, and there's going to be hundreds of thousands of them, they'll all be connected, spread over thousands of kilometres. And because of that, the sheer size of it will make it 50 times more sensitive than any other radio instrument. So it will be the most sensitive instrument in the world. I love this fact about it. It will be so sensitive, it will be able to detect an airport radar-like signal on a planet 10 light years away. It's a great fact about it. But we have
Somebody's worked hard to come up with that fact.
Yeah, I know. Yes, absolutely. And they must have been really pleased when they did. Yeah. But we have the international headquarters for the SKA out at Jodrell Bank Observatory, and that's a fabulous opportunity for all engineers and scientists around the Northwest, and especially in Manchester, to get involved, to collaborate with the SKA as an international project as well. So yes, I'm very much looking forward to continuing working with them.
On a more general point, if there was one thing in your lifetime which you would hope your engineering expertise would achieve, what would you say it would be?
I think right now it would have to be on the less technical side and using my engineering to inspire the next generation. And if we could get to a point where we didn't need National Women in Engineering Day, we didn't have to celebrate things like that because it was just quite normal. Because why would you celebrate it? Because it's, that's quite, everyone's got female engineers. So if we can get to that point, and if I can help get to that point, and if my research and doing what I do can help inspire that next generation, then I will feel I've done a good job.
Just taking you back to the beginning of the interview, when you were that small child looking through the telescope, you obviously got a real sort of buzz out of that. Do you still feel that way about science and engineering in particular?
Oh, I do, yes, absolutely. I love the fact that I've no idea if what I'm doing is going to work or not. And it's a funny thing when I have PhD students and they are really disheartened because something that they've done for the first time hasn't worked. And you're like, don't worry, this is very normal. This is what happened to me. It's what happened to everyone. And the fact that you just don't know if it's going to work and how you're going to get it to work, but you have quite an assurance that you will get it to work because we can all work together and we have fabulous ability between us. And so not knowing quite how you are going to fix the problem or face it, but knowing that we will, and the next challenge that might bring, we're not quite sure what that is yet, but there's always the next challenge to work on, and that's what I really love about it as well. It brings such a different challenge than teaching does. Teaching gives me a huge challenge as well, and even though you know your subject really well when you're teaching undergrads, to still have that fire in your belly when just before I'm going to give a lecture is really important to me. And I've always said to my head of school, if I stop getting that fire in my belly, I need to stop teaching, because it's really important that you have that passion for what you're doing, whether it's teaching, whether it's research. You need the passion and you need the curiosity in it. So whilst they're very different challenges, they both bring big challenges to me. And
do your students push you?
Oh yes, blimey, yes, all the time, yeah. So from my first year undergrads, so 200-ish 18-year-olds, more or less. And I think that's why I have the fire in my belly, because you sort of know what you want to achieve in the lecture, but you've no idea what question they're going to ask you. And it's really nice. That's a really good thing, because you're sort of like, I really want them to ask questions and I really encourage it, but I have no idea what they're going to ask. And so waiting for that, when the hand goes up and you think, right, this is going to be it, and it's going to be, the next 50 minutes is going to be about this question, but it's going to be a good thing and everyone's going to learn from it, yeah. Then yeah, they provide huge challenges for me. It's great.
They push you into new areas?
Yes. Oh, yeah. So something could happen and you sort of think, yeah, why can't we develop that? I mean, certainly my PhD students push me into new areas of thinking. Well, if you can do that in farming, why can't you do it in aerospace, or why can't you do it in a different, in the built environment, or so yes, right from undergraduates to postgraduates and postdocs, yeah, they challenge me, push me.
So you're quite confident that then when your daughter starts asking those questions, as you did, which she inevitably will, I suspect, that you'll be able to answer them? Even
if I can't answer them, I'll take lead from my mum and dad and say, well, if I can't answer them, let's find out together. And I think that's the important thing. It really doesn't matter if parents don't know the answer. It's the confidence to sort of say, do you know what, I don't know either, let's find out together. And it's that last step that's a really important step for everyone.
Danielle, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much.